Let's jump into marks, layers, and colors. You are in the right place today if you are curious about diving into abstract expressionism art and you're eager to explore new ways to grow in your art, in your own art practice. And finally, you want a sneak peek into what it's really like to be in an in-person workshop right here in Santa Fe. So a little bit about myself. I am an anything but usual abstract expressionist artist. I've been painting abstract for about 15 or 20 years. I'm also a creativity coach. I'm certified and have worked with the masters in creativity, and I coach artists of all types, from writers to painters. I also lead workshops and I host residencies here for artists right here in Santa Fe. So my promise for you today is that in the 45 minutes we're together, I'm going to give you as much information free that is humanly possible. And everything that you learn today that we'll talk about, I actually use in my workshops and coaching. So it is proven to work. So a little bit about the workshops. These are the four components that come together in every workshop. The first one is talking about your basic tools, learning about the mediums, the paints, materials, substrates, the hardware that comes together. The second thing we talk about are the elements, the way you create your abstract art with marks, layers, form, and texture. And the third thing is color. This is a really important one. Of pulling together color in your art. And finally, the fourth one, which I think this is the most important for whatever level you are as an artist, is to have a visual voice. Understand why you paint, why you create, what's the emotion, what's the story, what is the intent, how are you connecting with the viewer and your collector in your art. And this one, we spend an awful lot of time about being a creative and showing up as a creative. But today we're going to talk about these three things: marks, layers, colors. And then at the end, you're going to bring all of those elements together into a practical, hands-on exercise. And I have a bonus for those of you who stay until the very end. So let's dive in. I'm going to jump out of PowerPoint and we'll get the demonstrations going. All right, well, let's begin by talking about the very essence of abstract expressionist art, the mark. Now, the mark isn't just a line or a dot, it's not just a pencil, but it's a spontaneous gesture that can be a swash of paint across your canvas. It could be a shape, it could be patterns. So a mark is anything that comes together that builds your entire piece of work. So I want you to think of a single mark as a word. And when you put several of these marks together, you make a sentence. Then eventually your canvas is filled with marks. You've written poetry. So these expressive marks are the most important elements as they dynamically interact with each other and layer over top. And they will reveal, accent, mask over, obstruct, and they'll let your artwork emerge. And let the marks talk to each other. After you lay down one mark, let it tell you what the next mark is. So where do you get marks from? We're going to do a quick exercise here. I want you to grab your pencil and open up your notebook. I'm going to give you a prompt, and I want you to make a mark in response to that prompt. And so as you create these prompts, you're going to create a dictionary of marks that you can use in your own art making. So here we go. I'm using a magic marker so you can see it really well. So create a mark that is angry. What's an angry mark look like? Do not overthink this. Draw an angry mark. This is a fun one because it's usually a tangle and a twist. Angry mark. Now conversely, let's create a happy mark. Let's create a closed mark. Now create an open mark. Now I want you to think about your senses. The sound of a bird singing. Create a mark that represents that. Now I want you to think of touch. You just touched a hot pan on the stove. What does hot feels like? What does that mark look like? Now let's think about a cold mark. You've got an icy drink in your hands and it's almost too cold. It gives you that cold headache. So what does cold feel like? Now I want you to think about, we're in Santa Fe. Let's think about the taste of a margarita. If you had to draw a mark that tastes like a margarita, what would that be like? Salty on the edge and then sweet into that tangy bite of tequila. You can also look around your room, your space outside. Look for marks, shapes, and symbols and repeat those. I'm looking across the room at a tub of paint and the lid is an oval. So what's a mark that has all these interacting ovals? Repetition is a great mark to create throughout your art because the eye loves to see repetition. So do a series of marks that are repetitive. So this is really just a quick study of different marks that you now can use in your abstract art. So if marks are the foundation, I think of the base, the building blocks of my art, then color is the heart and soul that comes in and it tells the story through the color. So it could be vivid, high key, intense, bold. It could be soft and subtle. So a truly sophisticated color palette will really set your art apart. And I think the very best thing that I want to tell you today is you have all these beautiful colors, but I rarely use colors straight out of the tube. So mixing your colors and getting that shift in your colors will actually set your art apart. So today we're going to look at what does a limited color palette look like. This is a really easy way to start because when you use a limited color palette, you're mixing from the same parent colors and everything goes together. So today we are using a cad orange, a cerulean blue, no it's cobalt blue, then a neutral gray, and then titanium white, which I keep in a tub. And I've already put those on the palette. Here's the cad orange, the blue, the gray, and the white. And I did a little bit of pre-mixing. And so as long as you mix your two colors, let's do about 50-50, 50% orange and 50% blue. And as you mix these together, you're going to get subtle tones. So this is a bronzy orange that we've got going on right here in the middle. So to that bronzy orange, now we can lighten it with a little bit of the titanium white for a lighter tone. And then we're going to do the same thing with the gray. And this is kind of becoming a taupe. And if you notice, I am not a purist about cleaning my spoons because I like the intermixing. So now we've got gray going into the 50-50 color. You can just see it's a slight color shift. So you can also take your colors white direct with the orange. And we're going to get a really just a light tint. I always have an off-white that's slightly tinted with whatever colors I'm painting with. So very light tint of the orange. And let's take the blue and mix it with, I don't think we lost our gray, with the rest of the gray. So this is blue with gray, and let's see what happens with that color palette, with that color mix. It's going to soften the blue and give it, oh, it's kind of a cadet blue. So the more you mix, the more you will know about this. So you can see these are the shades I've mixed today. So a great exercise for you to follow is to take two colors like the orange and blue and create a grid sheet. This is 100% blue, and then on the other side, 100% orange. As you come down, they're mixed with white and gray on each side. Then as you come across, this one is 90% blue, 10% orange. On the other end, 90% orange, 10% blue. And you can see I've shifted across the middle. And then as you come down, add white to that mix and then gray to the mix. And look at the rich, rich color palette you have. Now painting with this You have a huge variety of colors from brights to neutrals. This will hold your art together. So today we're working with a limited color palette. Now let's put the marks and the color together and move on to our third subject, layers. So layers are the storytelling. You're bringing all the pieces together. We're going to do a quick demo here. Actually, we've got our sheet of marks. Let's use this as our base. I will often start with dark, heavy marks as my foundation to start building on. So as you work through the layers, I want you to read the marks as you work, and they'll tell you what they need next to them. So I just have a bucket of water here. I often will start with the darkest dark, and this is super black Indian ink. I usually use black because this is water soluble, but let's just use this today. So I have a super dark base to begin with. And then layers will be everything from the darkest color glazed over top. And if you're working wet on wet, you're going to see that they bleed together. This layer is somewhat transparent to marks that are a little more vibrant. This one's working wet into wet, scratching into it. And I often do not clean my brush because it's that serendipity. Let's bring the blue in. Let's go with a little bigger brush and pull some of that blue. And if this black was dry, I would kind of glaze over it. But you can see how the layers are starting to build up. And I'm really tempted to use my hands, but we're going to stay with brushes today. Sometimes we'll turn the brush around and scrape in, pulling paint across or just revealing the blank canvas behind it. And use white as your giant eraser. And anytime you have a light next to a dark is an area of interest. So this is how you would start building up layers in a painting. Keep working, letting one layer tell you what goes next to it. Working fast, don't overthink it. Also though, I don't want you to forget to stop, stand back away from your art and look at it. The bigger your art is, the further across the room you need to be to really see what's going on. When you're up close working on it, you have no idea what's happening. Well, let's see, a little taupey stuff. So great example here of how do you start a painting with marks, limited color palette, and then layers. Okay, get ready. We're going to do your exercise next. Okay, now it's time for you to play. Get out your supply list, the 3 sheets of paper, the paints, the colors, the brushes, and let's get started. I'm going to set this aside and get our paint colors out. And on the wall, I have my 3 sheets of paper. I'm going to adjust the camera up slightly so that you can see everything. All right. So this exercise, I've called it, when you don't know where to start, here is where to start. And I think you're going to enjoy it. So you have your 3 sheets of paper. They can be taped on your table. I'm putting mine on the wall so that you can see them. And we are working in a series of 3. So a series allows you to push, pull, play, work on the same theme, the same color family, but yet do each one a little bit different. So I have 12 creative prompts for you. We're going to go through them fairly fast because I don't want you to overthink it, just react. And I will repeat it twice. But if you're not painting along with us or you lose your place somewhere, just keep going. I will send you the creativity prompts in a follow-up email so you can do this exercise at home again and again and again. So here's the color palette. I've got my blues, grays, a mix of colors here. I'm just going to mix up a few more really quick so I have plenty of paint to work with. And I'm doing this super fast. So again, you're working in your limited color palette. All right, let's begin. So, your first prompt will be grab a pencil or a graphite, something that you can make marks with. And I'm using a magic marker because I want you to be able to see this. But your graphite will be much lighter. Across each one, repeat this, you will make a dense scribble that's chaotic. A dense scribble that is chaotic. All right. So your next prompt is grab your biggest brush that you have. This one's been sitting in the water. And your darkest color, load up your brush with your darkest color. And I want you to make one big gestural sweep with your darkest color. Serendipity that mine is running and dripping. And that was a large gestural sweep with your darkest color. Number 3, with a smaller brush, pick a medium color. Mine's kind of an orange gray. And I want you to come on top of or adjacent to the dark mark. Remember, your marks are talking to each other. So this medium color is going to be adjacent to or on top of the dark one. All right. Your colored marker, and I left mine over here. And with your colored marker, I want you to do a series of repetitive marks across your canvas. So I just grabbed a Posca paint pen, an orange one. Series of repetitive marks across your canvas. All right. Number 6, get a dry brush, one that's not wet already, and you're going to load your dry brush with paint. This is a super dry brush. Load it with paint, and you're going to drag your dry brush over the top of the area. So this is going to give you a really different texture versus a wet one. All right, that was the dry brush. Next one, we're going to do a wash of translucent, transparent color. So in a wash, get your brush really wet. Mine's been sitting in the water. And then dip it into your color and make sure it's really wet. Mine is soupy sloppy here on my palette. Sometimes I'll even dip it back into the water because dirty paint water is magical. And you're going to do a wash and let it drip across the canvas. So there's a layer that's a soft wash across the canvas. Next, we're going to jump into the spark cards. And if you don't have a deck of spark cards yet, get these. These are 90 creativity prompts that you can use when you're stuck starting a painting, finishing a painting. So we're going to use some of the spark cards right now and pull these out. Let's see. Palette knife. So grab a palette knife. And again, I have to grab over here. Palette knife or your scraper tool that you had, and you're going to load the back of it with a thick passage of paint. And load that. This is kind of an impasto effect, so it's going to be really thick. It's going to give you another texture different than the rest. So a thick layer of paint on your paper. Again, you could be using your credit card to do this. Some people have the nice shaper tools. Okay, let's pick another spark card. Let's go with this one. Okay, so with the back of your paintbrush, I turn my handle around. You're going to scrape into this thick part and create a mark, scraping and pulling the paper. So the back of your paintbrush, scrape into it to create a mark. Scrape some back, move it around. All right, there's the scrape. Okay, let's pick another spark card. All right, and this one is opaque white. So grab some white. I'm going to open my tub up, and you can use a thick brush or a scraper tool, your credit card, and take some really thick white, and you're going to add thick white. Thick white kind of acts like an eraser, so let's kind of add the white. And sometimes at the very end, the white is all it needs to just pull it all together. So there's the thick white over top. Over the top of that. Okay, we have one last prompt. The very last prompt is get your most vibrant color. And you are going to take your most vibrant color, here's my orange. You're going to take your most vibrant color and put a pop of that somewhere on the canvas. Now, as a tip, this is when sometimes I use the paint tube and just draw straight on it or put a bit on my finger. The pop of color at the end is like putting on your diamond jewelry. And if you put this next to the darkest part, it'll be the most vibrant. Or sometimes I'll come in tone on tone. And look how that most vibrant orange just added. And this is, I'm just using my finger, but you may use whatever you want. Because I have some left on my finger, I'm just going to unload it there. Okay, so those were 12 creativity prompts. Now, I want you to step back away from it. As I said earlier, the bigger your art, and abstract art is usually big and wow, you've got to step back and look at it and see what it needs and add one more thing to that piece of art, if it needs it. Okay, so for those of you who taped down, I want you to pull back the tape, and these crisp edges are going to just pop. Let's pull one of these off of here for you. So this is what your piece looks like once you pull the tape off, and those crisp edges instantly make it a piece of art. So in summary, what we did here, we worked in a series. You are allowed to push play and do something a little bit different in your series. You explored, you used marks, layers, and a limited color palette. So this is a good way to start a piece of art and then launch from there. So let's just pull this one over. And you can see close up the layers of this piece. There is soft layers, thick layers. This heavy navy color is actually paint that was drying and chunky, and I came in and it's kind of like rubber and scraped it in. And this is finally the last mark series that pulled it all together. So this is how you use layers, marks, and a limited color palette to create great art. So what I'm going to do, we're going to switch back to the PowerPoint if you give me just a second. So now you've got the how to create, how to paint an abstract. What's next is the crucial why. Seeing the world as an artist, experiencing and interpreting the world. Painting with intention, expressing your true voice, and conveying that deep emotion. And this is the piece that we really get down and dirty in our workshops. So if you have one major takeaway today, I want you to know this about being an artist. That first you learn the mechanics, your tools, mediums, and techniques, and then you go play with them, test them out, and grow. I want you to see the world without filters, to unravel, look, translate, create. Also, I encourage you to have a creative practice, to show up and do the hard work, do the deep work, be in the studio creating. This is when you'll grow. I also encourage you to develop your unique visual voice and what you want to say through your art. And finally, learn how to see your art and talk about your art. This is the connection that you make with the audience. So as you're growing in your artistic evolution, here are 2 paths. Choice number 1, you can work tirelessly on your own. You can keep doing the same old. You might be frustrated at times. It might be slow. Or choice number 2, you can give yourself the gift of focused immersion, that time in the studio in a workshop that will really help you grow by leaps and bounds. This is where you really will move forward. So here are a couple of artists who have done that very thing, Amy and Jill. And Amy was in Abstract Studio Deep Work, and she said she just needed the time to reflect and develop and learn fresh techniques. And she really grew during the workshop. Now, Jill, on the other hand, this was the first time that she had really painted. And for her, the exercises were motivating and really gave her a lot of hands-on. And Jill also says the food's amazing. We cater all of our lunches, so we keep you happy. So this is my invitation to you to work together. And there are 2 workshops that have various dates coming up. Abstract Studio Deep Work is for the intermediate to advanced artist who really wants to push that visual voice and really dig deep in and growing fast. Abstract Studio Discovery is for the beginner to intermediate artist. And here we'll really work on the basics and really help you get your feet on the ground so you're ready for the next step of growing. So the registration for these 2 workshops are open right now, and they are for you if you are absolutely ready, a hell yes, to push your boundaries into your artist practice. So if you sign up today for any of the workshops here in Santa Fe, I'm going to give you a package of big Yes Spark cards, and I will mail those to you so you can have them right away, and you can also use them in the workshop. So if you can't come to a workshop, you can also buy a set of these. It's a $33 value, and all of this information is at the website, Big Yes Spark cards or Book a Getaway Workshop. So we're going to open this up for question, discussion, dialogue. So I'm going to get out of PowerPoint and we are going to talk. And if any of you have to log off right away, thank you so much for joining us today. And I really hope to see you in Santa Fe. Let's make art happen.